Hey, Jennifer, what are we talking about today?
We're going to try something new today.
All right, I guess we'll see how this works.
Let's do it.
Hello, and welcome to Moms for Book Liberty,
the podcast where a couple of moms fight back against groups trying to control what our kids can read.
with each episode focusing on a specific book that has found itself on the chopping block of censorship. So yeah, last week's episode was a bit of a clusterfuck, wasn't it?
It was, yeah. For us, hopefully you can't tell, but...
Yeah, I think the overall episode came out sounding really good, but there were lots of technical difficulties. We had an awesome interview with mom from the co-founder, the founder from Stop Moms for Liberty.
Yes.
And then I deleted it.
It was, yeah, that broke my heart.
And then how long did we spend trying to recover it?
The whole day.
The whole day.
The whole day. And so then we finally get to recording, and then my daughter's like, Mom, I'm at school. Come pick me up. And I'm like, you're supposed to be on the bus, girl. What are you doing?
Like, well, the bus is gone.
It was a day. It was like our Friday the 13th. But
yeah, it was bad. But you know what? Something good did come from it. I finally figured out how to split the stereo tracks.
Woohoo.
And now I'm able to make Jennifer's voice as loud as my voice.
Yes, because I try not to be so soft-spoken, but apparently I can't help it.
And see, I tried not to be so damn loud, but I can't help it.
We got it figured out now.
Yeah,
so,
we make a good pair, you and I. But yes, even though it was kind of a shit show last week, we're excited to bring sort of a newer episode. This is a teaser. We're not covering a book in this episode, right?
Correct.
We are talking about the book that we're going to cover next week. But we also want to talk about some victories. Moms for Liberty lost huge in these off-year elections, right?
I've been loving seeing the coverage on it and just all the posts of people saying, yeah, our people won. Moms for Liberty is out. They lost big. And I love the post you sent me, and it's like Moms for Liberty's logo, and it says, "We lost fucking everywhere." But obviously that's a satire post, probably from who knows where. But the point is, like, all of these posts are popping up from people that are speaking out and speaking up against these extremist groups. And as a result, they lost these elections. Yeah.
There were 13 candidates in the 2023 school board races I think just in the state of Iowa.
Okay.
And out of the 13, only one candidate won. And it was in a really small district of like fewer than 1,000 students.
And so. I've seen posts of people saying like, oh, my little red town voted them out.
Nice.
And I'm like, fuck yes. Like, finally, we think that we're not the majority sometimes because these people are very loud, very vocal, and they have a lot of money thrown behind them. Mm-hmm. And it turns out people are like, no, we're done with this shit. We've seen what you're doing to our schools. We're over it. And I'm like, yes, finally.
Yes. And yeah, I mean, it is a nice change because it can feel very daunting and it can feel like, well, what's the point? Like you said, all this money is being thrown, in their direction, which is what happened with my race. Yeah. Like Ron DeSantis's PACs, funneled hundreds of thousands of dollars into Moms for Liberty candidates across the entire state of Florida. And, that is why I lost.
And he got a bunch of them elected.
And Florida saw huge victories for Moms for Liberty, last year.
Right.
This has been the year anniversary. And I'm like reflecting on the past year and like kind of selfishly thankful that I didn't win because talk about, the shit show in Flagler County right now. But I'm also, on the flip side of that, I feel like had I did win, it would be less of a shit show.
Most definitely. Yeah. I think most everyone, I won't say everyone because there's still people like diehards, but most everyone regrets.
Well, yeah. Well, I don't know. I think that a lot of the people that voted for Will Furry, they didn't know who he was. They were just like, oh, Ron DeSantis is telling me I need to vote for Will Furry.
Absolutely.
And so they did.
Because I looked up the numbers of the people, like the age brackets of the people that voted for him.
Like all octogenarians.
Yes. It was like 75 and older.
And whatever, he won fair and square. It's just such a shame to see all the money that is being lost towards frivolous lawsuits, not even focusing on like student issues.
No, they're just doing their own agenda shit. You know, they're destroying our schools. Mm-hmm. And honestly, I think that was the point. That's my
Yeah.
my feelings. But
Well, I don't think Will Furry is like, oh, I want to destroy the school, so I'm going to become a school board, because I think he really does think very highly of himself. Like, I think he thinks of himself as like a messiah type, like God figure.
Yeah,
like he's
I
very
see
much
that.
like, I'm going to save the schools from Courtney's porn. Like, that's what he thinks.
he's also on a power trip.
Yes, it's a huge power trip.
Huge power trip.
Yes.
Like, you could see it. Like, he's like, I get to do this.
Yes.
And I decide. The people voted for me to do this.
And I'm going to protect kids from learning about same-sex marriages so that they don't go
And
to
bring
hell.
Christian values back. Like,
Yeah. It's well, speaking of Christians, people like us, people like Stop Moms for Liberty, people like Moms for Liberties, which is that really funny satire
Yes.
website you guys should check out. So it's Moms for Liberties, we'll put it in our show notes, but it's a satire website
Yeah.
that kind of makes fun of it. So like people, like small groups around the nation are popping up, and even like Southern Poverty Law Center, Moms for Liberty is an extremist group,
Yes.
they're all sort of like spreading the truth and about the nefarious intent of this organization. And similarly, this awesome pastor named Paul Dries, he waited 8 hours in, where was it?
Wisconsin.
To give his statement about a anti-trans bill.
Yes.
So we're going to play that clip for you.
The Holy Spirit has taught me to be accepting of trans people through a variety of passages, such as Acts 8:26-39, where St. Philip welcomes and baptizes a person we might call intersex or trans today. Or through Galatians 3:28, where St. Paul proclaims there is no longer male and female, for all of you are one in Christ Jesus. Or in Matthew 19:12, where Jesus commands us to accept eunuchs, a group that was marginalized because their genitals did not match what society expected. Now, it's very possible that there is a Christian argument for this that I have not heard, and I might not understand. That's a possibility, and I want to acknowledge that. I certainly am not omniscient by any means. But I can see no legitimate Christian grounds for advocating for Senate Bill 480 in this session. Christianity is inherently a religion of the marginalized, but just as angry religious people crucified Jesus, the church often likes to find its own group to marginalize. For reasons I cannot understand, some Christians have decided that trans people are their next target. This is something that we see in Wisconsin. This is something that we see across the nation. And I pray that the Holy Spirit might break open their hearts as she has broken open mine. I've got some other stuff that you can read if you want. But finally, I pray that in hearing all of our remarks, that each of you and all of our representatives might not let your heart get calcified to the suffering of others. If any of you have had to bury a beloved, you know the temptation to try and pretend like their pain is not real, or seeing the pain of somebody else and trying to think that it is not real. I have buried enough people over the course of my short tenure as a pastor to fall into that temptation from time to time again. And so my prayer for each of you is that you might continue to have empathy for each other, for people across the political aisle, and for all of us gathered here. Thank you.
So, are you a Christian, Jennifer?
I'm towing the line. I keep saying I keep leaning more atheist with each encounter I have with a Christian.
And this is not a podcast about religion.
Right.
But
I grew up
listening to that guy,
yeah.
sign me up.
And, a lot of the comments in that post were, I don't go to church anymore, but if there were more pastors like you, I would come back.
And I think that's the problem. Again, not a podcast about religion, but a lot of people have this problem with Christianity is the hypocrisy.
Yeah.
And Pastor Paul Dries there just sort of hit the nail on the head there. And I just love when pastors like that can come back with actual Bible scripture that proves the opposite.
Yeah.
That Christianity, bottom line, is a religion of acceptance.
Yeah.
But we're not seeing that. And Moms for Liberty is a Christian organization that is showing the hypocrisy of the religion.
Yes.
In targeting, trans students in books that feature diverse characters.
It's a big target.
Yeah, it's a huge target. And that's what he said. They're targeting this group of people, this marginalized group of people.
And we see it in the book bans. Obviously the books that people choose to challenge a lot of the times have gay characters, trans characters, and people of color.
Yep.
Any type of minority, they just don't seem to like anything that's not white, cis.
Yeah, and we've talked about this before because there's white cis spicy literature, right? So
Right.
why aren't we hearing about these books? Like, I have one actually literally right in front of me, and I'm hesitant to out this book, but I mean, why the hell not? Because,
Right.
you know, the book we're going to talk about today is Storm and Fury, and there are gay characters in that book, right?
I'm only 2 chapters in because
okay.
the reason we're talking about this book, should we talk about that now? Or
Sure. Well, yeah.
It's because a Moms for Liberty school board candidate in Santa Rosa County, she called the cops on the media specialist because they
We've heard
had
that
this
before.
book.
That's let's just remind our listeners that happened in Flagler.
Yes, that happened.
For All Boys Aren't Blue.
And we lost a very good media specialist because of it.
That. Yep.
Yeah, and I don't blame them one bit for leaving because it's
either.
just a lot of bullshit to put up with.
Exactly. But that was they were the greatest media specialists,
Yes.
and the kids in the schools suffered a huge loss because of that.
Yeah, huge. And we keep seeing that. We keep losing good teachers, good media specialists because they're done with the bullshit. And I think that's also why they lost big this year, the Moms for Liberty.
Yes.
Because parents are starting to realize, like, we're chasing away all the good people we have in our schools.
Yeah, and these families have to send their kids to public schools.
Right.
And that's what a lot of people don't understand. Oh, just send them to private school. Oh, just homeschool. No, I have a full-time job, and it doesn't pay for private school.
And the vouchers don't
yeah.
pay for private school.
They don't?
No, they only pay. Well, this
that's
is what the
right.
schools did. The private schools were like, oh, the vouchers will cover everything.
No.
Hold on, let me raise our prices. And now only the wealthy can still afford to send kids to private school.
Yeah, and also there's been problems with the vouchers about, like, being approved. You get a letter like,
really?
oh, you're approved, but then, like, the money isn't there yet. Like,
Oh, I didn't know
there are
that.
still families that are like, oh, I was approved for this scholarship, but the money hasn't gotten in my account yet. And I think it's because the money isn't there, because more people are applying for these vouchers, and there's only, a certain amount of money. So yeah, it's problematic. But the point is, families rely on public schools.
Yes.
And groups like Moms for Liberty, and this candidate whose name is Jennifer Tapley.
Fucking Jennifer, as always.
Oh.
Damn it.
Hey, I mean, yeah, it's not Karen, but it's Jennifer. And it's funny, she asked to remain anonymous.
Right.
But she's a school board candidate.
Right. And that's why. She didn't think it was going to come out.
I think if I were her, which thank God I'm not, it's a tactic.
Absolutely.
But it's just funny because didn't you read some article where she was just like, I didn't talk to the sheriff's department or blah, blah, blah. Yeah,
she tried to deny it. Okay. So I'm not sure where the story first broke out. I first saw it. I saw the video, the body cam footage from the police officer that she called on the media specialist. So that's the first story I saw. The first thing about it I saw.
And was that at a police station or was that at school?
I couldn't tell, but it looked like the school.
It was at the school. So she's at school. She calls 911.
Yes.
911 shows up. These are our hard-earned tax dollars at work, like reporting to a school about a book, not a gun, not a knife, not anything dangerous, but a fucking book. And the police officer, got to hand it to him. He was very patient.
Yes.
And listened to her. And there's an old man there too. I don't know who that guy was.
Another Moms for Liberty guy.
Okay, one of the old men, Grandpa for Liberty, and then her daughter,
a young girl. She looks 9, maybe
9 or 10, yeah. And they blurred out her face, which I appreciated. Like, you don't need to bring kids into this. Like, I don't know why she was there in the first place. But yeah, the police officer was like, he was like, and what is it that you want me to do?
Right. You can tell he's like, he doesn't say it, and he's definitely trying to hide it. But you can tell that he's like, why the fuck am I here?
Yeah, you could tell. But he was being kind.
Very professional.
Professional, that's the word. But then he's like, can you just sit here for a minute? And then he walks out. The body cam footage shows him walking down the sidewalk towards the flagpole, and there's like 3 other police officers, and he's just like, I don't know what to do. And the one police officer is like, what do you mean? And he's like, well, she wants to open up an investigation. And then the one police officer, he just can't hold it. He just starts cracking up.
Yeah.
He's just like, what? And he's like, we're not going to do that.
They wasted 4 police officers'
4,
time.
yes. When they could be doing who knows what.
Right.
It's
like such a waste of resources, time. And they didn't do anything. They eventually said like, hey, look, we can't do anything about this. Take it up with the school board.
Oh, that is what one of the police officers said. Because the one guy who was like asking for advice, he's pretty much like, I don't know what to do here. And then I guess maybe it was his senior, I don't know. But he was like, you have to tell her to go to the media specialist. That's the chain of command.
Yeah. And of course now she's claiming, well, I didn't want to get anyone arrested. Then why'd you call the police?
Yeah, what were
you hoping,
the end game?
And she was like, her excuse now, I think she's backtracking a little, is that she wanted the cops to tell the media specialist what to do with the book, to get rid of it. And I'm like,
what? This is not Nazi.
If you're claiming that she broke the law,
they want it to be Nazi Germany.
Yes. And come on, if you're claiming someone broke the law, what is the result of that?
Exactly.
They get arrested.
Exactly.
So don't pretend you didn't know that's not what you wanted to do.
In the video, she's like, I'd like to remain anonymous. And the police officer doesn't say anything.
Right. He didn't say yes, okay, we'll do that.
He kind of said
we'll see.
Yeah.
But he made no promises.
And for our listeners out there who may not understand sunshine law, because this is the state of Florida.
Yes.
And I know every state is different, but similar to the Freedom of Information Act, right?
Mm-hmm.
In Florida, you can go into that police station and be like, I need the body cam footage. Or you send an email or something. I don't know. There's a process. But you say, I need the body cam footage for this police officer or for this date or this time or whatever. And so all it takes is like someone who has a little information.
Right.
About what happened, and then you can get the body cam footage, and then that's what happened, and now it's on YouTube, also linked in our show notes.
Yes,
give it a watch. It's silent for like the first 30 seconds.
Yeah, don't worry about that. That's normal.
Yeah, but then you get it, and it's not that long. It's an interesting, it's a revelation.
Yes,
into the minds of these people.
And I thought it was really funny that she told the cop, even the governor says this is pornography.
Yeah.
Like, what makes him a fucking
expert on literature? Yeah, and that's the problem right there. That's what makes this harder than it used to be.
Yeah.
Because of these new laws, thanks to Ron DeSantis. And so now that's why you see schools throughout the state of Florida erring on the side of caution and pulling books, because of these, like we talk about every episode, these laws that are confusing, that are hard to interpret, that, that don't really make any sense.
Right.
Because it's pornography, to me, are images that elicit sexual feelings.
Right.
And a book that describes, a sexual act in context of something else.
Of a story.
Yeah, a story is not pornography. Is it appropriate for all ages? No.
Right.
But that's what we're getting to actually with this book, Storm and Fury. One of the questions the police officer asked was, like, did your daughter rent this?
Yes.
And she's 9 years old.
Right.
So...
And she's like, no, it was a 17-year-old.
Yeah.
And she compared the book to giving her daughter a Playboy magazine.
Yeah.
Which I was like, what?
This doesn't make any sense. 17 is like almost an adult.
Right.
And this was in a high school library. That's where this is becoming so problematic. It's like the police officer was so confused, he had to clarify. Did your 9-year-old daughter rent this book? Is this why you're upset? And she's like, no. And what did she say? She's like,
oh, if they would have given this book to my daughter, I would be behind bars right now.
Like,
oh, okay.
Are you threatening to kill the librarian?
Right. Like
for something that wasn't even close to happening?
And to compare a book to Playboy. Like, I've heard that comparison before, or Hustler magazine.
But hey, Playboy has great articles.
Possibly. I haven't seen a Playboy magazine, I think, ever. Yeah. Do they still exist?
I don't know. But I do think, honestly, in terms of dirty magazines, Playboys are the ones with the most words in them.
Okay. So Hustler was more just like porn.
Yeah.
And this one's like, we'll throw in a story here and there just for, literary value.
Hey, we can cover a Playboy.
I was going to say, we're thinking the same, because I was thinking, where can I get one? We should take a look.
Where can we get a Playboy? Let us know.
I know, yeah.
eBay?
For real, an old one probably would be cool.
That would be.
I forgot. I lost my train of thought.
Because we're talking about Playboys. What were we talking about?
No idea.
Oh, we were talking about how this book isn't porn.
Oh, yes. Yeah, so basically, I'm only on chapter 2, right? Mm-hmm. So I'm not that deep into the book yet, because we just found out about this. So I was looking on the site where they like to use to challenge these books, right? To see what their issues were with it.
And there's a couple of those sites.
Yes.
And they're all they're like sister sites, but they're basically the book report sites that rate them from a 1 to a 5?
1 to a 5. And this one's rated a 4 on one of the sites. It turns out me and Courtney have been looking at different sites. So she'd be like, I don't find it on this site. I'm like, it's right here.
And we thought there was one site, but there's multiple sites. Like
same name, just ends in org or info.
Yeah.
So
yeah, booklook.org or booklook.info. One is like local to Brevard. Other ones are more national, I think. But either way, their intent is the same.
Right. And so they have this book listed as a 4. It's over, I think, one scene in the book that I obviously haven't gotten to yet. But it's like around page... It's like in the 300s.
Okay.
So it's around page 376, so close to 400 of a 500-page book.
And this one scene.
This one scene.
Yeah.
That makes this whole book pornographic.
So that's not pornography, right?
So yeah, that kind of goes to like what we're saying is pornography is, its whole intent is to arouse.
Exactly.
That's like the only thing that they're focused on doing.
And every book we've covered, and every book that has been challenged, has not been any book that has like a sexually arousing scene or like a spicy or a tantalizing scene has not been for elementary school or even middle school kids.
Right.
It's been for high school, right? And so
Right.
that's the conversation that we need to have. It's up to the parent or the guardian to decide whether or not your high school student should have the freedom to self-select the book.
Yeah, right. And it's not graphic in the sense like they're not talking about like his member, his thick glistening cock.
Oh.
Like some books that I have read say, not in YA.
Yeah.
But
yeah, these are just A.
Right. So, like
these are books that you can get at like the Winn-Dixie book aisle. Have you been to the Winn-Dixie book aisle?
I have.
You should check it out.
But, like smut is popular. And even those books, I don't consider them pornography because there's a storyline to it. And like you fall in love with the characters. There's no pictures, right?
Pictures.
It gives your imagination something to do.
Exactly.
It's creative,
Yeah.
So even like when there's a lot of sex in the book, there's still a storyline. You still walk away like, oh yeah, like, oh great, he's a great lover. But oh, he's so dreamy. Like I love him. Oh, when he was sweet to her, whatever.
Yeah. Or when she was sweet to her.
Right. Yeah. So that brings me to, and this isn't a very smutty book, but if any of our readers are out there, Fourth Wing, the second book, Iron Flame, just came out. And so I'm a little pissed because I just got it in the mail yesterday.
Oh,
my
you
copy.
can't read it because you have to read Storm and Fury.
Yes. Which is, this book sounds good. But it's not this highly anticipated book that just released that, like there's watch parties.
Oh my gosh.
Not watch parties, release parties.
Yeah.
And all this.
And you have to wait.
And I have to wait.
Yeah. We'll get it recorded soon so you can join in.
Oh yeah, no, I'm going to breeze through this book in the next 2 days and get started on the next one. But yeah, like thanks a lot, Jennifer, whatever your name is.
What is her name? Other Jennifer. Oh, and the author of this book is named Jennifer.
Oh, yes. Okay, good. A counter.
Yes.
See, a good Jennifer to the bad Jennifer.
Exactly.
2 good Jennifers to the bad Jennifer.
Exactly. You guys cancel out that bad Jennifer vibe. So yeah, the author is Jennifer L. Armentrout. We didn't say that.
And we're going to cover this book in the next episode.
Yes.
Because obviously I haven't read it yet.
And our Jennifer is going to tell me about Jennifer Armentrout's book because as opposed to just both of us reading the book.
Yeah.
We'll try that out again and see how that works. Oh, but also this is not the same as the A Court of Mist and Fury books.
No, I keep wanting to call it Mist and Fury.
Yeah.
Because I'm a big ACOTAR fan too.
Which I don't know what ACOTAR is.
It's the acronym for A Court of Thorns and Roses, which is the first book in the series.
By Sarah Maas.
Yes.
Okay. All right. See,
Sarah J. Maas.
Sarah J. Maas. So we're trying to keep everything organized here, and that is what I thought first when I saw this book is it was from that series, but this is a completely different series, completely different author. Some would argue that the Sarah Maas books are not YA, but these Jennifer Armentrout books are YA.
Right.
I don't know.
No, she is a YA author. I think even on the back of the jacket it says it. Yeah. And she's highly reviewed on like Goodreads and all the sites.
I think this book has 50,000 reviews and it's at a 4.1 or something with great reviews. And also HarperCollins, which is the publisher, they have the age rating at 7th grade, which is like 14 years old and up.
Yeah.
Which is important.
This is what kids want to read.
Self-selection.
Yes, like statistics show that books that are self-selected, that kids that can select the books they read are more likely to read, to become readers, to enjoy reading, instead of, and I'm guilty of doing this, giving my daughter a book like, here, you have to read this. But this is just to get her into reading habits.
Yeah.
I'll read a book and she's like, I want to read that. I'm like, let me finish it.
Yeah.
And depending on how spicy it is, you can read it or not.
And that's what it sucks that we have to sit here and say this to, and I know that Moms for Liberty and like people that don't agree with us aren't listening to us right now, but like when I was running for school board, I was so irritated at the fact that I had to explain to them that I was not giving porn to kids.
Right.
I'm like, why? That should go without saying. We're not talking about porn. We're not talking about the World Wide Web. We're not talking about all these internet sites that kids can access. They have literal computers in their pockets.
Right.
We're talking about books in libraries. And like, no, I don't think that Storm and Fury should be in the elementary school library for a 5th grader to read.
Right.
But like that should go without saying, because the Lexile level of that book is probably in the thousands, right? Then that's a high school level book, right?
Right.
And that's not going to be in an elementary school. And you're not going to have books about sex. You're not going to have board books about sex.
Right.
Unless their goal is to teach good touches and bad touches, which is a completely different story.
And important.
Yes.
For them to know.
Exactly. And again, it just brings the conversation back to context.
Right.
Like, no, we're not handing, little 6-year-old Susie a book about penises and vaginas because we are dark and disgusting pedophiles. We're doing it so that 6-year-old Susie knows what private parts are. And kids of all ages understand that there are predators out there and that you're not allowed to be touched in certain places. And if you are touched in these places, then you need to tell a trusted adult.
Yeah.
And that somehow gets twisted by these extremist groups into handing out porn to kids.
And it's been proven too, statistically, right, that kids that don't know like the proper names for vagina and penis are more likely to fall victim to predators.
Exactly.
To predators.
And we know the statistics on, children's being sexually assaulted are way too high. And knowledge is power and awareness is power. And if we can spread knowledge and awareness, then we can lower those statistics. And that should be our collective goal. Whether you're a Republican or Democrat, you should want to be taking part in lowering those statistics.
Right. And they talk a lot about sex trafficking and things like that. These books would help prevent this. Like, stop fighting it and realize that these books help.
Yeah, and
bring
that brings
awareness.
And that brings me to this article that I'm going to post in the show notes, written by 2 authors. It was published by Columbia University. Their authors named Gay Ivey and Peter Johnston, and they wrote a book together called Teens Choosing to Read: Fostering Social, Emotional, and Intellectual Growth Through Books. And one thing out of this whole article that really stuck out to me was the idea that there are, which is kind of funny, it paints this funny picture, young people reading quote unquote dangerous books in secret. Like, can you just imagine, like, your 14-year-old or even your 10-year-old, whatever, is in a corner and there's a blanket over their head and they're reading this like banned book and there's like under the cover of darkness with a flashlight and like they're like being really secretive about it. That's not what's happening. Like they're reading these books and then they're having conversations with the trusted adults in their life through the characters.
Right. It opens up dialogue.
It's much easier to have a conversation about heroin and the dangers of addiction if you're talking about the character in, let's just say, Elena Arnold's book, Crank, which is a very popular and very heavily banned book that really sheds important light on heroin.
Right.
And other drugs. But it also allows them to talk about sex and relationships and good touches and bad touches and depression and all that stuff. So the image of young people reading dangerous books alone in secret and in distress is not what they observed when they did this study. Because this is a scientific study in which adults and students were surveyed, basically, about what happens when students are able to, like you said, self-select a book.
And that just goes to show, like, again, let them read what they want to read. And we keep removing books that are popular, like the ACOTAR series, which I get people have debated whether it should be a YA book. I don't think it's that bad. It's very much like the other books that I've read that have been challenged. And it's a popular series. So if my kid came home and said, I want to read this 600-page book, I would be like, here you fucking go.
Yeah,
like, read.
Go ahead.
Once they're 15, I know that they know all this stuff, you know? So to read about it, it's not going to be, they're not going to discover anything new in these books. They already know a lot of it. Now, if you don't feel your child has been exposed to any of this and you want to keep it from them, go ahead. Again, that's not my issue. You parent your kids however you want to.
But know that there are consequences for that. And you basically are in a situation now where you have a child or an adolescent or a teenager or whatever who is not being exposed to these different perspectives, and that's going to be problematic for them in terms of their own personal growth, because that's what this study even goes on to say, is that the only thing that came from kids reading quote unquote disturbing books is an increase in empathy and self-growth. And we've talked about how, like, you know, Moms for Liberty and other extremist groups, and now really it's just Moms for Liberty. Like,
yeah.
Honestly, they're targeting books that feature gay characters or LGBTQ characters or black or brown or, you know, BIPOC characters and also authors. But, you know, the statistics with suicide increase with those groups as well.
Yes. And they don't like to talk about that. No. They always try to justify like it's something else. And I want to bring up something that happened locally at one of our schools. We had a child bring a knife to school recently. And so the rumors flying around it is that this child may be gay or is being teased. Teased about being gay. Whether he is or isn't, I don't know. But that seems to be what built up to him bringing a knife to school. Mm-hmm. And we've been having a conversation online where one of the Moms for Liberty members, I believe she's a member, and we kind of had a back and forth cordial about the situation and how I mentioned that if it was bullying that led up to this, that I hope the bully also sees consequences, because a lot of times we just focus on the kid that brought the knife and throw the book at them and kick them out. Yeah. But we never do anything about what caused them to get to this point.
We're not addressing the root.
Exactly. So it continues to happen because the bullies keep bullying and the shit keeps happening.
Exactly.
So she actually agreed with that, you know. But here's where we didn't get into it there. We just kind of left it at like we need to like maybe kind of join forces about getting to the bullying part. But this is where we see, unifying. Yeah. The only problem I see is that where we differentiate on this is that I see it as what you guys push for when you're getting rid of these books. Exactly. When you're not giving kids a safe space at school because they can no longer go to a guidance counselor and say, hey, this person is bullying me. I don't know their situation, right? I don't know if their parents would support them or not. Exactly. So maybe this child has been bullied but couldn't go to
a guidance counselor. Because then it would be revealed something, then home life would be more challenging.
Exactly.
Yeah, we have created unsafe spaces for students. Right. And by we, I mean Ron DeSantis. But, you know, as a result...
And Moms for Liberty.
Who have been working, you know, their tagline is they don't co-parent with the government, but... Ron DeSantis is the daddy of liberty, and they're the mommy of liberty. It's as simple as that. Ron with his shoe inserts. Which, have you seen?
Is that considered cross-dressing? Like, he's very anti, you know, drag shows and stuff, but those are heels he's wearing.
They have proven by taking pictures, and there's a t-shirt. Christmas is coming up, as you all know, and we're going to talk about that later, but I'm going to buy this t-shirt for my partner because he's very, you know, entertained by the fact that he wears shoe lifts. Yes. But the t-shirt is really funny. I'll have to look it up, but it's like Ron's big boy boots or something like that. And then it shows like the schematic drawing of like how the inserts are in the boot and
you stuff. Can definitely tell. Like I saw another one, like video, not another one, and he's walking and his knees are where his thighs should be. And I was like, whoa, okay.
Yeah, it looks so weird.
So weird. Like, now that I know, I always look at his legs now, and I'm like, holy shit, it's so obvious.
Oh my gosh, I gotta find it. It's like Ron's big boy boots, and the artist who made this t-shirt, like, deserves all the creative credit in the world because, I mean, I hope that they just make a killing off this for for Christmas presents. Yeah. It's called Really Tough Ron Boy Boots.
Oh, that's funny.
I don't know who the original artist is, but I'll find it and I'll put the link in the show notes so you guys can check it out and maybe buy it for...
I want one.
Yeah, right?
Yeah. But going back to what I was saying about... No, I know we got a little off topic there, but this specific mom was saying that, you know, she's not okay with any kind of bullying regardless of what it was for. So she was saying basically if he was gay or not gay or whatever, it's not okay to bully him. Mm-hmm. I'll give her credit for that, right? Mm-hmm. I just don't think that she realizes, though, that a lot of what she does, what she advocates for when she goes to school board meetings...
is divisive.
Yes. And it's making it harder for this child to seek help.
Exactly.
Because they're 12, 13-year-olds? This happened in middle school. Yeah. He might not have, like...
the critical thinking skills.
Yes, to say, I can go to this counselor and I don't have to tell them that I'm gay or this. I just have to tell them that I'm being bullied. But in his head, he might be thinking, if I go and tell them, they're going to find out I'm gay. If he is, you know, let's assume, right? I'm making assumptions here. They're going to find out I'm gay and they're going to have to tell my parents. Mm-hmm. And it's just going to be worse. Now my home life is going to suck too. Exactly. So now they're not seeking help. Like, I appreciate that you want to help the student, but do it all the time.
Right. And so when I was running for school board, that conversation, what you just explained, came up time and time again. And that's how I sort of formed a relationship with the Moms for Liberty chapter here in Flagler. And I had many cordial conversations with them. And the theme of every conversation was unity. Like, yeah, I think that, everyone, regardless of your viewpoints, has a voice and deserves a seat at the table, including Moms for Liberty.
Right.
But, it does need to be pointed out, and we will call you out on your hypocrisy of saying that you want to unify groups within your community, but you're also only targeting these books that are written by LGBTQ authors or feature LGBTQ characters or BIPOC authors and characters, which was why I was asking, is there an LGBTQ relationship in Storm and Fury?
I'm only into chapter 2, and there is a gay couple.
Okay. So there you go. That's why. Which brings me to my next point, which I am going to out this book because I'll just have to be honest with myself. No teenager is going to read this fucking book. I was just a different teenager when I read this book, but it is a series by author Jean M. All, and she wrote like 7 or 8 of them.
Okay.
And one of them's called like The Plains of Passage, The Shelters of Stone. Like, it's an anthropological fiction. So much sex.
Okay.
Every other chapter, or actually every other page is like, she took his member into her hand and, he like tickled her fluffy.
So it happens often.
All the fucking time.
Not 300 pages in.
Not one scene. Like this, I could turn to a single page in this book and find a spicy sex scene. But like you said, there's no vulgar vocabulary.
Okay.
There's no like cock or tits or whatever like that. But it does say like, he like tickled her her furry mound and, inserted his large member, like that kind of stuff. Yeah, because it's a story. It spans over 7 books, okay? And each book is 800 pages, okay? So I can do math here. 7 times 800 is 5,600 pages of these two characters traversing the European, like, flora and fauna in hunter-gatherer times. And so it's just a huge book for nerds, okay? But
with a lot of sex.
With a lot of sex. And so none of these books are on, Moms for Liberty's radar. And they were all over the high school. So I'm just going to read a little bit. Let's see. He went lower, found the entrance. I skipped a lot, just saying.
Okay.
He went lower, found the entrance to her warm, wet cave, and reached inside. She spread her legs to give him more access. He got up and moved between them, then lowered himself and tasted her. That was the taste he knew, the taste of Ayla that he loved. With both hands, he spread her petals wide and licked her with his warm tongue, explored her clefts and crevices until he found the nodule that had hardened a little. She felt each movement as a delicious flash of fire as the desire inside her grew. She was no longer conscious of anything except Jondalar and the mounting surge of exquisite pleasure he made her feel. His manhood had swelled to its fullness and strove for release. Her breathing quickened, each breath coming with a groan, until suddenly she reached a peak and felt herself well up and overflow. He felt her warm wetness, then pulled back and entered her welcoming depths and plunged in deeply. She was ready for him, and arched to take him in. As he felt his member slide into her warm and welcoming well, he groaned with pleasure. It had been so long, or so it seemed. It'd probably been like 5 minutes.
5 pages back they were doing it.
But yeah, this series starts out with a very sexually stunted female character who experiences sexual assault in the very first book.
Okay.
And then she meets Jondalar, and he helps her find her like sexual independence and discovery. And so it's really a very healthy sexual storyline.
And I don't think that was written in a very vulgar way.
No, it's definitely not vulgar, but it's definitely tantalizing.
Yes.
And I would say this book is definitely, it has a lot of where it's eliciting sexual feelings.
Arousing.
Arousing. It has a lot of arousing scenes, which some people could argue like that this is porn, but again, there's the Miller test, which establishes whether or not something is porn or not.
Right.
But also, I feel like you gotta have images for it to be porn, right? I don't know.
I mean, I feel like yes.
Yeah.
But also,
But either way, like
right.
this is as close as it gets to book porn.
Yeah.
But, going back to the discussion about the books at the Winn-Dixie aisle, that's book porn too.
Right.
But it's not like it's not, porn is not the right word. I don't like that word because porn, to me, is, on a TV screen or a computer screen, and it's real people that are being exploited for, or maybe they're there voluntarily, maybe they're not, maybe they're being exploited, but they're real people that you're watching, as opposed to fake characters in a book.
Right. And the way they describe it, it's not very, what they're doing, yes, they're having sex, but it's not vulgar.
Yeah.
So it's similar to when you watch a movie and, on the TV screen, not porn, just a regular movie, and there's a sex scene.
Yeah.
It's not porn because you're not seeing an actual penis enter a vagina.
It's the same thing. Yes. Yeah. But I guess the line that, we have to figure out where to draw is, these books being at a school library, whereas like you wouldn't be able to access a Netflix show that has a sex scene at school.
Right.
And so that's where the problem lies. But that's why these things have to be distinguished. Like a Netflix TV show is not the same as a book.
Right.
But anyway, back to the whole point of this was that these 5,600 pages of these books have been in multiple libraries probably since the early 90s.
So a lot of these parents who are now banning books have had access to these books as well.
Yes. But also, they're not on any of the Moms for Liberty lists because it's white, cis, heterosexual, sex.
Yeah.
It's not on their radar because there's no LGBTQ characters. They're not BIPOC characters. It's a white female author, like, is cis female. Like, it's not checking any of their boxes.
And that one seems to have a lot more sex than the other books.
Exactly.
So, yeah.
See, like,
we're not asking you to challenge it, but we're wondering why you haven't.
I don't want you to challenge it. But at the same time, I don't think that teenagers today would appreciate this anthropological masterpiece the way that I did.
Well, it sounds like it does have literary value too,
it has
right?
So much literary value. It has a lot of scientific value because it talks a lot about it's historical. So it's fiction, but it's based on anthropological fact.
See, you don't get that in porn.
Exactly.
The sex is just there to keep you reading. So you don't get too bored with the sciencey stuff.
Yeah, and that's what all the reviews for the series is like. Yeah, you have a lot of like drawn out imagery of the flora and fauna of like the European grasslands, and then you get bored, but it's okay because then they have sex in a hot spring. So
I mean, for a 15, 16, 17-year-old.
Maybe someone who wants to be an anthropologist.
Right. Yeah, again, like I say what you want about my parenting, but I would be fine with my 15-year-old reading it because I know they hear a lot worse at school.
Exactly. And also, it's normal for 14 and 15-year-olds to start having those sexual feelings.
Right.
And they're going to act on those sexual feelings. And masturbation is healthy, but that's a whole nother podcast, I think, is the taboo nature of self-pleasure. And what are we just supposed to be... tell our kids that they have to be celibate nuns until they meet the love of their life and then they don't know how to have sex with them?
Well, that's what they want, right? That's what they want us to teach our kids.
Yeah. Yeah.
Which, again, like, if you want to teach your kid that, and I can tell you from experience that all the Christian kids that I knew were having a lot more sex than me. Mm-hmm. I just happened to get knocked up. I had the evidence of my sexual encounter.
Right.
But the other ones were doing it a lot more and with a lot more partners.
Yeah.
So... Mm-hmm.
And they were the ones that were going to church?
Oh, yeah. Like, they're the ones up, like, singing, like...
in the choir?
Yeah, and praying over everyone else.
With the promise rings on?
Yes.
Oh, no.
So,
yeah.
Yeah,
it doesn't work out that way. That's why, conversations are important. And, scientific studies, the ones we mentioned a while back, because this episode is getting way too long now.
Yes.
But the scientific studies that we mentioned, that's real evidence that, like, when kids self-select a book, not only do their reading levels improve, but their confidence improves, their self-worth improves, their empathy improves. And then can you imagine a world where everyone is empathetic?
Right. It would solve so many problems.
Right. I mean, we are solving the problems for you guys.
Yes. Let them read.
Jennifer and Courtney, listen, we have the solution to world peace, and it's let kids read what they want to read.
That's right. That's it. That's it right there.
So I think we should kind of wrap up now on that point.
Yes. So the next episode, we're going to dive into the book itself and go into more detail.
We'll read more sex scenes too.
Yes. So don't worry, there'll be a lot of sex. If you have a chance, pick up Storm and Fury by Jennifer Armentrout and let us know what you think about the book.
Yeah. How spicy on a scale of 1 to John DeLar and Ayla. Okay, well, yeah, thanks for listening. And remember, don't ban books.
Ban bigots. This episode has been engineered and mixed by your hosts, Jennifer Mendoza and Courtney Green.
Be sure to follow our show on Twitter at Moms for Book Lib and Instagram, Facebook, and TikTok at Moms for Book Liberty with the number 4.
And leave us a review on Amazon Music or Apple Podcasts, or you can rate us wherever you listen to podcasts.